Hey guys, welcome back. How are you? I hope you all are good and doing well. So, in the last lecture, we understand TDD at very basic level, and we saw how TDD phases, I mean the red green reflector works. Okay, and we gone through with these phases using a very simple example. Okay, now in this lecture, we will see that if we have to cover some test cases for an existing implementation, or we need to find out that what are, if the requirement changes, what we need to do. Okay, so we will see that how to accommodate those requirement changes into the test driven development, okay, or using the TDD approach. Okay, so now let's go to our Ruby file. Okay, here you can see this is our spec and this is our implementation. So what is clear now, that it will accept two argument. Okay, and there should be non-numeric, and it should return the sum of the variables. Okay, but what should happen, let's say if you want to allow your system to accept string argument as well and then perform the sum. Okay, let's say you are providing values like, let's say, just change it here. Let's say user can provide string values as well. Okay, and then you need to perform the addition on the two numbers and return it as an integer, but users are providing the value as string. Okay, so what will happen now, let's say go to the terminal again and run the spec. So you will see that expected 40, but it is returning 1030 or 1030. That means since you provided two string argument, okay, so the plus operator within the add method is concatenating the string. Okay, so when both objects are string or both arguments are string, and when we perform addition, it will just concate the strings and return the concatenated output. Okay, but we still want output as the 40, but user can provide either numeric values or non-numeric values. Okay, so what we need to do here, that in the calculator class we need to change. Okay, so first write a new spec. Okay, and here what we need to do, it should calculate even if the numbers passed are in string form. Okay, so here what we can do, just to do this thing. Okay, so let's convert it into the string values. Okay, and now let's run this spec at line number 12. At line number 12. Okay, so you can see that this spec is failing. So now we are again at the red phase. Okay, now we need to turn into the green phase. I mean, we need to change our add method a bit, that will be able to pass this spec. Okay, so let's go to the add method. Okay, and here in this add method, what we need to do, that whatever the values are, first we need to convert them into integer. Let's say here what we can do, to I dot to I. Okay, and now let's run this spec whether it is passing or not. So now it is passed. So what we did, that we converted the string arguments into the integer, and then it is passing and returning the sum as the integer. Okay, but now let's see what happen if we have, sorry, let's convert if both. Okay, now let's copy this and type a mistake, should calculate even if only one of the number passed is in a string form. Okay, let's say 10 is string and 30 as integer. Okay, so now let's pass this spec at line number 17. So this is still pass. Okay, so why? Because we are converting both the arguments within the integer. Okay, so here you can see for the single change we need to write two test cases. So because there are two possible scenarios. What happen if both numbers are in string form? What happen if one is string and one is integer? Okay, now, so with string values, it is fine that we can convert them into integer and just return them their sum. Okay, but our test case will fail now. Let's say we can go to this stage. Okay, and then we just need to provide some two float value or two decimal. Let's say 10.5, 10.4, and 30.1. Okay, so what should be our output? 40.5. Okay, now if we execute this line at line number 23, our test case will fail because we are expecting 40.5, and that should be obvious. Why? Because our values are 10.4 and 30.1. But what we did within this calculator class, that we made it value 1.2i, value 2.2i, so we are converting it to the integer, and that's why our float values are failed here. Okay, and we just did it because it obvious thing that a lot of people do it like oh, one is in string, then it's the obvious that converted into the integer. Okay, so what we need to do here, that we need to consider the point that what happen if the number is provided as string. Okay, so first we need to check that if the argument provided is string, then only convert it into the integer, otherwise do not do anything. Okay, so here what we will do, let's say well1 equal to well1 dot to I if well1 dot is a string. Okay, and same for the well2 as well. Okay, so what we are doing here now, we can remove this 2i from this calculation. So what we did here, that first we check if value 1 or the argument 1 is provided as a string class, then we need to convert it into the integer. And for the same thing, if value 2 is provided as a string, then we need to convert it into the string integer. Okay, now if we go to the spec and if we pass this, now it will get pass. Okay, so here you can see all these specs are being passed now. Now there is one more twist. Okay, let's say if the string values are provided like something like that. For example, let's say if our example is decimal numbers passed are in string form, let's say it's a 20.7 and 30.8. So what should be the output here? It should be 41.5, right? So let's say, okay, so it should be 41.5. So let's go to the thing, sorry, let's go to the terminal and run the spec at line number 29. Okay, so what it will return, that it will still return 40, not the 41.5. Why? Because there is the change in our add method, that it is converting it into the integer straightforward if it is the object of a string class. Okay, so the condition is true, that this 10.7 and 30.8 is object of a string class, but this is a decimal value if we convert it into the number. Okay, so we cannot make this decision that convert it into either a string or either a float. Okay, why? Because if you convert it into the integer, but the number provided within the string is float, okay, let's say 10.5, so it will convert it into the 10, not into the 10.5. Okay, so now you need to change your decision within your implementation, just to make sure that it should convert that into the respective format. Okay, so how we can identify that whether this string is decimal or integer? Okay, so let's go to the uh, class again. Okay, so here we can make some other decision. Let's say well 1 equal to here what you can do, let's say if here let's say first you can just remove dot is a string, okay, then here you need to make another decision that well one dot include this dot sign, okay, if it contains the dot sign then what you need to do, well one equal to well one dot 2f, okay, convert it into the float, else well one equal to well one dot 2I, okay, and the same thing for well 2 as well, let's say well if value 2 is a string then well 2 sorry here well 2 as well, okay, now you can remove these two lines, okay, and now let's go to the spec again, run it. Now you will see that your spec has been passed, okay, so what you make changes here, that first you are considering that if value 1 is a string, okay, I mean the first argument is a string, then you are making another check that if it contains the decimal point, I mean the dot, then convert it into the float or decimal, else convert it into the integer, okay, and if value 2 is also a string object, then you are making again a decision that if it includes dot, okay, then it should be converted into the decimal, otherwise it should be considered converted into the integer, and then you are calculating the value 1 plus value 2, okay, so here you can say that our spec has been passed. Now let's run all the specs at once. Okay, so here you can see we have 5 examples and 0 failures, okay, so here in this lecture what we did that we think about multiple edge cases, that what can happen, let's say if both numbers are provided as a string, then what should happen, it should, however the condition is that it should return the arithmetic operation, so even if the numbers are provided as the string you need to calculate their values, okay, as a integer or float, okay, whatever it should be, just return a numeric value in the result, okay, so our first example that we created in the last lecture was working fine, but here if we are providing both arguments as string, first it is concatenating them, not returning as the numeric value, okay, and if one of them is numeric and not both of one of them argument is numeric and one of the argument is the string, then it should return the error, okay, so we handle everything, okay, now we are remaining one more case, okay, which is let's say only if one of one of the decimal number passed are in string form, so let's say which is 30.8, so it should return 41.5. So if you run all the specs you will see 6 examples, 0 failures, okay, so this is the power of test driven approach, okay, because you can think of in multiple dimension and you can cover as many as test cases if you go with that way, so rather than implementing this way, what we did, we just go through the specs one by one, I mean for a single scenario at a time, and we went to the method, we refactor it, we enable the test case to pass, and then we change the method and then we refactor it, and we repeated it for every scenario, okay, so now you can see this is our final solution and this is much better, and however you can optimize this code further as well, okay, but the idea is to understand and explain how TDD works, okay, so this is we just learned through the Ruby project, but you can apply the same behavior and same approach within the Rails applications as well, okay, now let's discuss one more edge case that could be possible, that since you are providing value as the string, you are converting it either float or decimal, and then you sorry, integer, and you are performing the calculation and returning the numeric value. But what happen if you expect the if you access the array arguments? Then what you will do? In that case, you need to return a error message that this argument is array or not, or in the string or decimal form. So you need to return that. Okay, so this is how you can write test cases and all. So I hope you like this one as well, and if you like this, let's wait for the new series where we will write test cases for the API only application, and we will develop that API only application using TDD approach. Okay, so just go through this, and thanks for watching this. We will meet into the next lecture. Till then, tata, goodbye, take care, stay safe.